Born in the 19th century, industrialized in the 20th, cinema entered a new millennium with a digital revolution already on board. Big cameras gave place to smaller ones, big screens increasingly repaired to living rooms, and both production and distribution became more agile, flexible, and globalized. But the real revolution taking place right now is not related to cinema itself, but running in its background: blockchain technology. Blockchain is essentially a digital ledger, a new way to store data in which individual records or blocks are linked together in a single digital list or chain. That information is then compiled and decentralized in an encrypted database available to everyone. Blockchain's potential for cinema is huge, not only as a tool against piracy, identifying theft, but also because it brings with it new ways of financing, producing, and distributing content, providing guarantees of trust and transparency. Let's take copyright infringement as an example. By creating an immutable record of transactions on any asset, blockchain can build smart contracts into legitimate film uploads and broadcasts, sending a signal to content owners whenever non-blockchain content is discovered online. The same can be made by the creator of a story, idea, or script. They can register it on a blockchain, and subsequent transfer of these rights will build a transaction history, protecting the original creator and all rights holders on the list. Since everything is recorded, this means that if the asset is viewed by someone in the chain, the creator can be paid immediately, without the need to wait for confirmation from studios, streaming platforms, or theaters. With no need for the involvement of a third party, it can expand the microfinancing market, keeping records of the various stakeholders. You can even fundraise your movie by tokenizing each of the standard 24 frames per second, listing those in a database in order to be paid accordingly and immediately each time any of them are reproduced. The potential is huge. There are already platforms that allow you to upload your project and market it to an audience, while investors check fan engagement and decide if it's worth the investment. The adoption of blockchain technology requires time and effort, but the future inches toward decentralization, and the independent film industry must be aware of that. Are they ready for the coming opportunities?
My name is Jorge Pereira. I'm here to conduct this FAST conference regarding the future of film. Today's subject is blockchain. Will it be a giant leap for the film industry? We have three guests who will join us in this discussion so you can understand a bit more about this blockchain technology. I will start to present them. We have Irina Albita, co-founder and co-CEO of Filmchain, the first digital collection and content management company that transforms how producers, financiers, and sales get paid. We have Florian Glatz, founding president of Bundesblock, the German blockchain association who is advocating for blockchain technologies in Germany. And we have Sam Klebanov, CEO of Cinezen, a decentralized peer-to-peer marketplace which employs DLT to revolutionize online film distribution. We might start first with Irina to know a little bit more of her work at Filmchain and to explain how this blockchain thing can help cinema, the industry. Thank you, Irina.
Hello, everyone. I'm Irina Albita. I'm the co-founder of Filmchain. At Filmchain, we are the fintech solution modernizing payments in film and TV from viewers to content creators. We are a team made of filmmakers and technologists, and having grassroots in the film industry is what powers us and motivates us to make a difference for film and TV content creators and the whole value chain. One second. At Filmchain, we cater to two segments. Firstly, for the independent sector, we work with production companies, and here I'm talking about independent films and TV series, where we provide them our digital collection management system, where Filmchain becomes the trustee that aligns all parties that come together to make a film. Here I'm talking about the investors, the sales agents, the producers, and the talent. And secondly, we realize that also in the enterprise sector, they're really pushing strongly to digitize internal processes. And we are launching an enterprise product targeted at distributors, networks, and studios, offering an internal and automated royalties management solution. Through our work, we have identified a number of problems in the film and TV industry. First of all, film and TV participants struggle to understand how much they need to get paid. Payments get delayed and at times never reach them. One of the latest European Commission reports shows that 20 to 50% of revenues never reach the correct rights holders. And this, for us, is a big problem with serious implications for the industry as a whole. Over and over again, we also find out that companies in the sector struggle with manual, opaque processes. Many of them rely on Excel spreadsheets to run their businesses. So while we see a lot of technology on the screen, a lot of the business processes happen behind the screen are primarily Excel run. And ultimately, for us, it gets down to the lack of infrastructure. At Filmchain, we solve these issues with a scalable fintech solution. We offer instant access to money, data, and reports. We use blockchain smart contracts for revenue allocation, making the recording of revenues transparent and auditable. And we unify the management of payment entitlements, providing what we like to call a centralized single source of truth. On top of that, we offer analytics for the financial performance of the titles. One thing that we say a lot is, don't trust us. Just go and verify the information yourself at any time, which is a very powerful paradigm shift in the industry. I know we're going to be talking about adoption of the blockchain technology. I can share with you that our collection account management solution has been trusted by global clients in UK, Europe, as well as Portugal. We're working with production companies there in US, Canada, Australia, and Israel. And we're currently reporting and paying to over 900 beneficiaries on a weekly basis. At the core of our solution is the automation of waterfall calculations. And it's very important to us that any type of deal can be visualized on a dashboard for beneficiaries to be able to, first of all, really clearly understand the deal that they are getting into and that they're signing, as well as verifying their contributions and how much they have recouped at any given point of time. We enable companies to simulate how future revenues may flow and be distributed. And once these deals are set up, the platform calculates entitlements automatically and reports accordingly in perpetuity. Work that, as you well know, at an independent level would often fall on the producer's shoulders. And we always think about that, unlike with spreadsheets, particularly with Excel spreadsheets, where data entry can result in changes to formulas, once these deals are set up on the smart contract, the system continues to provide correct results over time. We have built a robust technology behind our product with top engineers and a lot of research and development. We use secure cloud-based technology, ensure transparency through smart contracts. And we are also doing machine learning explorations for predictive analytics of film's performance. But when it comes to the blockchain, it's important to say that at Filmchain, we don't use cryptocurrencies. We operate in euros, dollars, pounds. The way we use the blockchain is as a clear recording of the history of transactions. So we record every single euro that comes in and goes out. Secondly, we have a clear history of distributions, so the calculations of the entitlements. And thirdly, what we call an immutable record of ownership in a film. And what I mean about ownership could be an investment of a film fund or the deferred fee from a producer or talent. All contributions that need to be recouped in the future are recorded using non-fungible tokens. It is our mission to get the money made by the films we love to the right people. We are Filmchain. I would love to hear more of your questions and share more of our experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irina. We'll get back to you shortly. Now we're going to hear Florian has to say about this line of work in Germany. Please, Florian.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm also going to share my screen. So I'm a lawyer in the blockchain space, and I'm essentially, originally I was an IP lawyer, funny enough. So I quite familiar with the problems, let's say, of the copyright industry, in particular the film industry. And I'm doing a lot of lobbying with legislators over the past 4 or 5 years with regards to the potential of this technology. And in the realm of copyright law, there is in fact a lot of potential, as we also just heard from Irina from Filmchain. However, in some regards, it requires the cooperation of the lawmakers to actually make the potential real. But the bigger part, I think, actually needs to be done by the industry itself. Harder than convincing the lawmakers to pass a new law is to convince the industry to move to new infrastructure and new standards. But it's eventually going to happen, and it might, and this is my firm belief, will actually happen as a move to a decentralized blockchain-based infrastructure. So I want to give you some of the reasons why I believe that will happen. Basically, what in the previous 10 years happened is that some big players in the industry took advantage of this, and they hollowed out what copyright really means, because copyright, legally speaking, is in a sense, it's a social innovation that is supposed to assure the continuous production of cultural goods. And these cultural goods not only need to be produced, they also need to be fairly distributed in a sense. That means that everybody should have access to them. And it also means that people who pay money for access to cultural goods, they also should have certain rights. Now, the concept of the cloud really hollowed out this idea and derived both creatives, so artists, and users, so the viewers of copyrighted goods, of films, they derived them from most of their rights. And so now the question is, what will the next 10 years look like? And I firmly believe that the emergence of a digital property regime based on blockchain infrastructure will in fact change copyright in a sense where it gives back a lot of rights to users and creatives. And now let me continue. So I believe that the future of copyright is actually that of the universal digital registry. And that digital registry will be provided on a blockchain infrastructure. Why a registry? Now, there are political reasons for that. First and foremost, there is this new Article 17 of the recent directive on copyright in the EU. It has also been dubbed upload filters, so you probably have heard of that. It requires all platforms to pay damages to copyright owners in case a user uploads a video that violates copyright. Now, that sounds awesome when the platform you're uploading to is called YouTube, because it's owned by Google, and Google has billions of dollars and they make money on a lot of the labor of other people. So of course they should be paying up. But the political problem of this rule, which seems good at first sight, is that YouTube actually has an extensive content ID database that allows Google to actually Google basically knows when somebody uploads a video to which they don't own the copyright. So actually they don't have that compliance problem. The problem is rather that any competitor of YouTube, let's say a startup, a European startup that wants to offer a really cool streaming service, they do not have that content ID database. So they have no possibility of being compliant. So they are the ones that actually have to pay damages to copyright owners in case somebody uploads a video that is a copyright violation. So the result of Article 17 is in fact that YouTube and Google will be forever the monopolistic platform kind of dictator on the internet, because no other startup can even afford to be compliant with this European rule. And the reaction of this to this Article 17 has actually been that the European Commission, but also, for example, countries like Germany, have been saying that the EU needs to introduce a public copyright registry that allows all the companies in Europe to basically have the same kind of content ID or compliance database with all the copyright of all the films readily available to them, so that they can also be compliant with this rule instead of having to pay damages. So, and now when you wonder, well, how could we actually run such an infrastructure, you quickly get to blockchain technology as the answer. Another big reason for introducing a copyright registry is comes from the software industry. And it goes back to the year 2012, when the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, made a court ruling, which is called UsedSoft, where basically the court said it is possible to sell on used digital copies of software on a secondary market without having to give any royalties to the original copyright owner. Let's say, you know, you're a company, you buy a copy of Microsoft Windows, and now you want to sell on that copy of Microsoft Windows, and all you're selling on is a digital license key. And since 2012, this is legally possible, but practically it cannot be done, because as part of this court ruling, a requirement for selling on a digital good on a secondary market is to prove that as the seller of this digital good, you have deleted the digital good from your hard drive. But that is something you cannot prove. You cannot prove that you have deleted something. So the only way actually to make this work technically is with a external license database that keeps track of who owns the license to a copyrighted good, in that case, software. So that's another reason why we will most likely see a copyright and license registry in the future. And more generally, and I think this is also the case that Irina from Filmchain has been making, is that a blockchain-based copyright registry brings us more efficient clearing of rights, transparent tracking, easier monetization of the IP through direct payments between the fans and the creators, the abolishment of taxes and fees, certain middlemen. And what's very interesting is that, for example, there is a consortium of very big hardware producers currently active in Germany who want to get rid of a certain tax that every consumer pays when they buy a computer or a phone or a disc or something like that in the store. It's like a kind of a preemptive piracy tax that everybody pays in Germany and in many other European countries. And the way they want to get rid of this is also by saying, let's use blockchain technology to find a more direct way to monetize and fund the production of cultural goods. Let's move away from these taxes and fees and kind of general preemptive payments that people are doing so far, which is used to finance culture. And this is something that is fundamentally going to change with digital technologies, and I believe blockchain technology. This here is just a quote from actually the German federal government on this Article 17 upload filter regulation, where you can see what they're saying is that the European Union must develop concepts to counteract a de facto copyright registry in the hands of platforms like YouTube, and they instead have to provide a public, transparent kind of reporting infrastructure and procedures with the help of interoperable and standardized open source software, which is really just another way of saying they should use blockchain technology. Yeah, now we already got, I think, a great explanation of how blockchain technology works. So let me skip over these slides and just look at, I think just that might be interesting to the audience, the concept of an ERC-721 token. Now that is a technical standard for assets on a blockchain that has been built for representing, among other things, intellectual property. And you may have heard in the news over the past year from very big auctions happening in Sotheby's and other big auction houses, but also generally on the internet, where people have been buying digital art in the form of exactly these ERC-721 tokens. So famously, there is this artist called Beeple who has made a digital art called, actually I forgot the name of the artwork, but it's like a collage of thousands of pictures that he made. And he sold it as a digital ERC-721 token on the blockchain for $69 million US. So there is now a huge market around these ERC-721 tokens. And these ERC-721 tokens will, I believe, in the future be used also to represent copyright licenses for films. And essentially, they can represent so-called non-fungible economic goods, such as a license contract, a copyright license contract, ancillary copyright, and so on. They can have a unique owner or a group of owners, and you can define programmatically things like the territory where this license may be exploited, the time window, the type of exploitation that's allowed, and so on. You can potentially create sub-licenses of it. So a lot of the things that today we do manually with legal contracts can be done on this new infrastructure in a much more efficient and cheap process. And here you see, for example, a technical specification of a license contract for a film. So you can see it looks very technical, but really what it is, it's a machine readable data scheme that expresses in a way that a machine can understand the terms of a specific license. So here we have a license to the film The Godfather. It can be exploited in the territory of the USA, only on film festivals, and only in between the time window of December 2018 to December 2019. And you can also see that this license, again, is a sub-license of another license that somebody else has. So you can have a complete chain of ownership, a chain of title on this infrastructure. There are also other kinds of tokens that are relevant in the context of film. There is, for example, the ability to actually finance films as well. So to sell economic participation rights in the exploitation of a license. So technically or legally, these are called securities. And people in the film financing business, of course, know about this. There are film funds and other ways where these securities are being sold. And on the blockchain, we can represent these securities also as tokens and make them much more accessible for retail investors potentially, and so on and so forth. If you look at the whole cycle of a film, every different stage of a film, from the conception to the financing, the production, the distribution, and the exploitation, all of those different processes can be reassembled and made more efficient and transparent on a blockchain. Yeah, in this ideal world, the way that it works is we have this universal IP registry where copyright owners can register a film. And as soon as it's registered and it's defined what kind of licenses are available for that film, anybody, be it a corporation or a consumer, can acquire such a license by paying, and then the royalties are automatically paid out to the copyright owners in a waterfall. So everything that is typical in the industry. Yeah, that is my presentation. I'm skipping the rest of the slides for the sake of time. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Florian. We'll get back to you shortly. Now we have Sam. Sam, can you please explain us a little bit about your work at Cinezen?
Okay. I don't have any presentation. There is a reason for it. I just returned from Cannes. And actually, I did many presentations before, like in 2018 and 2019. I was presenting our project in every film festival and film market. It was all great. But now I feel that our presentations, which we did then, are very obsolete. And we have to rethink the whole concept of using the blockchain in the real world. It was really interesting to listen to Irina and to Florian, because I see lots of potential there in the future. And actually I have lots of very interesting takeaways from that. And there is really a great field of practical implementation of these ideas. But I also learned the hard way that implementing the blockchain technology as it is now is hard. It's not easy. There is a big, very strong resistance from the existing film industry. And also lots of aspects of technology are still very immature, which makes it very difficult to implement practically. So I will just tell you the story how we tried to do it in Cinezen and how we had to rethink it and what we'll do in the future. And why I don't want to show my old presentation anymore. Because the idea was, as you presented me, was build a peer-to-peer marketplace. So the idea was why we wanted to build Cinezen. There are lots of films which are unsold to different markets. And even if the films are sold to local distributors, they don't get enough attention. So we thought that basically blockchain technology allows the user to pay directly to the right holder, wherever in the world the right holder and the user are. It can be done instantly, automatically, registered on blockchain very transparently. So it would create a new technical environment for making every film possible for every user in the world. So we started to canvass the market, to talk to all the right holders and trying to actually build a platform which was doing just that. So, and we had several live presentations, like you buy a film, you pay for it, and you see that the money came a few seconds later to the right holder. Because I am also a producer, so I could use one of my own films. And to show that when I buy it on the platform, to watch it, like for, let's say $2, my share of revenue is coming to me instantly. Just sounds like a great idea. But again, in reality, we met lots of resistance. And part of this resistance was based on the inherent features of the first generation of the blockchain technology. First of all, to implement this decentralized payments when every user pays to every right holder directly, you need the users to use cryptocurrency to pay, because this is the only way to transfer the value directly via blockchain using cryptocurrency. And of course, very few of the users were ready to do that, and the mass adoption never happened. Then we built, and as I said, technically we built it, but there was not enough users who were ready to pay with cryptocurrency. So we built another layer. So we would be less decentralized, because we would let the user to pay with credit card, and then we would, on behalf of user, pay the equivalent of the cryptocurrency in the system, which was still fine. But as I said, the technology is still very immature, or was still very immature. So in the beginning, the transaction costs were reasonable, maybe a few cents, which is still like a few percent of the total payment, because we are talking about micropayments when the user pays, like, let's say $2 to see a film. Then cryptocurrencies were very volatile and scared the right holders because they didn't want to get paid in something which with such an unclear and unstable value. Of course, there was always an upside that the value could go up. And it was fun because we had a little bit of Ethereum in our wallets, which we used for testing. And then when we checked, we had like less than $50 just for test transactions. And then it jumped up to like over $500, which was nice. But most of the right holders, they look at the downside, that the value can disappear. And they were like not happy about that. And then the film industry is kind of very low-tech industry. Most of the people in the film industry, they're very much behind current trends. When I started to talk to them about blockchain in 2018, end of 2017, nobody even heard the word. If one person of 20 heard the word blockchain, I was happy. Most of the people asked me if it had something to do with geo-blocking, which was totally irrelevant. So people didn't know about that, but another problem is that the banks had very much negative attitude towards the cryptocurrencies. As soon as your company is starting to get some cryptocurrencies, you're going to have major problems with banks. So you would need to find a bank which is crypto friendly. In Sweden, it's very hard. I learned it also. That when we tried to change the bank and we mentioned that we'll do something with crypto, they said, no, we don't want to have a client. So this technical possibility met a lot of challenges. And while we struggled to license a good library, it was also quite clear to us that offering the market a great and transparent and automatic revenue system before we have revenues, before we can prove the market that we can have revenues, is also attracting very moderate interest. We still managed to license hundreds of films, but showed that also most of the right holders, they want, at least at this stage, they are less interested in high-tech revenue sharing systems. They're more interested in having money upfront. So we had to rethink the whole concept of how we will use blockchain in our business. Because I still believe the technology is great, because this industry needs transparency. This industry needs very effective ways of value transfers. And this industry needs more sharing, because the whole idea of our platform, because we are building VOD platform, was involving local influencers and curators as micro distributors, sharing revenues with them. And the more people involved in sharing, the more complicated it becomes using the conventional accounting process, because you will have tons of reports, invoices, in different countries, different bank systems. It's really complicated. Blockchain is a good solution for that. But first of all, we decided, okay, we need to focus now on actually building the platform, getting the really good films, getting the right influencers, and launching in some territories where we can generate revenues, and then we can reconnect the blockchain when we have some revenues to share. And we are launching our platform next month with really great content, really strong influencers in Russia, CIS, and then moving to Scandinavia and some other territories. But also we looked at the new generation of the blockchain solutions, because our first version was built on Ethereum, which was and still is the leading blockchain platform for business application. And Ethereum became unusable and the main reason for that is the transaction fees, because it used to be a few cents, which was kind of a bit high, but still okay for microtransactions. Now, this year, the average transaction cost is like almost $6. And sometimes it peaks to $40 or $50. So you can't use it for these microtransactions when the right holder is paid, or when the influencer local curator is paid every time somebody watches a film, because you need to often to send less than $1 you can't pay like $5 for that. And of course, volatility doesn't make it easy. But what we saw the last year in the blockchain world, I think is maybe the most important fintech innovation today is the rise of the stable coins. And stable coins are becoming very kind of mainstream way of transferring the value. And again, it's very interesting when I talk to the film industry people about stable coins, I meet like this blank eyes. It's like I was talking about blockchain 3 years ago. Film industry is very much behind it. But stablecoin, I guess there are a lot of people from the film industry listening to me, are coins, digital currencies, which are pegged to real world currencies like dollar or euro. And there are like Canadian dollar, even Mongolian tugrik exists as a stablecoin. And now some countries actually are even releasing their central bank supported currencies as stablecoin. And I know that Swedish central bank is experimenting with digital krona, and there are research regarding that in the United States, but some small nations already did it, like Marshall Islands. They have now their national currency as a digital currency, digital equivalent. So with stable coins, you solve the problem of volatility because there is no, it's always, if it's digital dollar, it's always $1. Or if it's digital euro, it's always €1 or Canadian dollar, whatever. Then there are, Ethereum was so-called proof of work blockchain, like Bitcoin, which required a lot of resources for mining the blocks. And, there is a lot of environmental concern about Bitcoin because Bitcoin mining takes more energy than many countries like Portugal, actually. That's a good example because Portugal consumes less electricity than global Bitcoin mining. And it's a very kind of resource demanding process, which makes with very limited throughput, which makes the transaction cost so high, unpredictable, and makes them peak. So there are a new generation of blockchains using another algorithm, consensus algorithm, because to validate any transaction, you need a consensus of the network. Like the majority of the nodes should agree that this transaction is valid. And it's called proof of stake. And it's much more resource efficient algorithm. Ethereum is promising to move to proof of stake, to launch Ethereum 2.0, but it's been like permanently delayed, and we don't know how many years it will take because it was supposed to be launched last year. I don't think it will be launched this year. It's very hard to rebuild an existing system, especially a system so vast and widely used as Ethereum. But there is a new generation of blockchains built from scratch on proof of stake. For example, Algorand or Cardano or Polkadot. So, and we are seriously looking at Algorand blockchain because it's very efficient. Any transaction takes 5 seconds, no more than 5 seconds, and it costs no more than 0.1 cent. You can use it, and it's also they also implement and transfer of the stable coins. So basically, you can transfer digital equivalents of dollar to any country in 5 seconds for 0.1 cent, and it creates. It creates actually a great mechanism for revenue sharing, because I think what blockchain can contribute, and it was very much in Irina and in Florian's presentation, is to create reliable, transparent, and fair mechanism of revenue sharing. And we want to implement it on our platform, and we want to share revenues both with the right holders and with the people who help us to promote the films on the local level. So this can be the solution of the future. There is a great promise in these new technologies, in this new generation of blockchain. But we also learned that when you want to get the industry attention, the blockchain maybe shouldn't be the focus of your value proposition. Your value proposition is to generate the income for the industry. Everybody wants the income. How they get the income is like secondary, but when you can persuade people that you can generate income for them, then you can put a very when we can very much improve your value proposition, adding the blockchain and telling them that the income is guaranteed, that they will get the payments automatically, and they would not need to chase you for the reports and for the payments. As Irina mentioned, lots of payments never reach the right holders. I had these situations myself, but when the platforms appeared, took my films, had them for a few months, and they disappeared without paying me a penny. And these situations are happening all the time. And again, I just came back from Cannes. I talked to lots of people in the market, not really a lot because not many people came to the market. It was like really strange Cannes market, but still enough people to get a good picture of what's going on. We are moving to a situation where lots of companies will have to deal with lots of small non-exclusive deals rather than one big exclusive deal per territory. Of course, if the film is winning in Cannes or getting a prize or even in competition, you can get the attention of many big distributors and you can sell all the major territories. But then there are lots of smaller territories who may not buy your films, but also only a very limited number of films get prizes in Cannes. Most of the films never get it, or don't even get an exposure in Cannes. So in today's tough environment, the distributors' appetite for buying risky films are very low. So lots of films are unsold. But there are lots of platforms who are chasing the content and they want the films. They want to try niche platforms, local platforms, many different local players. So they're running around the market offering $200 here, $300 there to buy the film rights. And many, and we're doing the same also now because we want to, we only buy a limited number of films rather than our initial idea to take all the films on pure revenue sharing. We now only focus on films which our local curators take. So we discovered that many, especially smaller companies, who would need extra revenues, they don't want to deal with these small non-exclusive deals, even if they can have tens of these deals. Like you sell your film like 10 times for $500, you get $5,000. It's not bad. And if you have many films, you can actually generate some considerable revenues, because the current system of invoicing, of licensing, of revenue sharing, of reporting to the right holders, of paying the right holders is very inefficient. And they're afraid that it will take too much of their resources to have this many deals, and it will cost more than it generates. So of course, blockchain was as like this global registry, which would really, I'm looking forward to it, simplify verification of the rights and licensing procedures, because you just register this new license on this registry, and when it's registered on blockchain, the film is yours. And also the payments, the revenue redistribution. So if it can be more efficient, it can create more opportunities for distribution, especially for smaller films, not only for platforms like us, but for many other platforms who are chasing films for low MG deals. So there is a lot of potential in blockchain in the future, but it's a struggle, especially because the film industry is has very low technical awareness. That's it.
Thank you very much, Sam. I will pick some of the words that you told us about blockchain and the resistance there is in the industry, not only in the industry, but also in the banks, in everything surrounded. And I will ask Florian, do you find that resistance to in this copyright new ideas that blockchain can change, for instance, from these big platforms like Google and YouTube, because you are saying that this new registry will allow other startups to come up?
Yeah, so the resistance in the industry is real, and I think it's mostly based on a lack of understanding more than anything else. And I think it's also based on an experience where this industry has been continuously, I think, disappointed by the technological innovations that happened on the internet, right? So far the internet was not very good to this industry, right? And when I present this idea of this universal registry, then the question always is, well, who puts the data on this registry? Like, who guarantees its correctness, right? And so there is no magic bullet for that. And you can either do it in a way that is top down, which is very slow and expensive, or you can do it in a way that is bottom up, which is much faster, but it comes with mistakes, right? And it's only ever eventually correct. And the latter approach is the more decentralized approach, which is more suitable really to how this technology works. But this is something where I feel the stakeholders in the industry, they feel particularly worried about it, because to them it just sounds like YouTube in the early years, where people were uploading, complete films, and YouTube wouldn't take them down because they made money on it, and so they had to, the copyright owners had to flag all the different films manually, and it was their burden to now police that platform, while they had no upside from it, right? So it just created costs without creating any upsides. And so I think there is a long history of disappointment with technology, and also traditionally a certain ignorance, I think, about how some technological things work on a lower level. And so I understand where the people come from, but at the same time, I think the only way to move forward is actually to use technology, but in a way that is helpful. And I think it's just a long journey that we're on to convince the stakeholders that this is where they need to be moving. And I think the change of how the industry works, that is caused by the big streaming platforms, is actually accelerating the process of understanding that we need alternatives, right? That we need also, as Europeans, some way to preserve our film culture and to finance the cultural production. And so I'm long term, I'm optimistic, but short term, I'm rather pessimistic. And yeah, that's how I would say.
And this transformation has to be global because, for instance, we have different markets, different rules of copyright. For instance, China is very different. So it has to be something global. It can start in a place, but you said you were lobbying in Germany and in Europe to that. But how to go from there to other countries with different laws, like United States or China, and etc.?
So one thing that the EU has realized is that it can have a lot of global influence with its regulation. If you look at the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, it's a purely European law, but it's now becoming the global standard because all the big international companies, they want access to the European market, so they have to subject themselves to this regulation. And now basically it has positive benefits for all the other people around the globe as well. And I think this is a potential that Europe has. And I think the 2020s, like the next 10 years, are the decade where we will see a lot of effort by regulators to regulate platforms, internet platforms. Be it, it started with Airbnb and Uber, but it's now going to Amazon, it's going to Facebook, it's going to Google, and why not also Netflix, right? I mean, there was some regulation already about, access to gated content and so on, in some directive of the EU that touched upon this. And I think it's really now the time where this kind of regulation will come up. And in fact, there are a lot of efforts on the European level, although they are not super pronounced yet, but there are efforts around what is dubbed a copyright infrastructure. And so we will see continuous evolution on this, but it's going to take at least 5 to 10 years, I think, to really get there. But I mean, that's long and not long, right? It's relatively, I think it will be relatively mid to short term when we will see something happening here.
But you are optimistic with that. You believe, you still believe.
Yeah, I'm optimistic, but I'm also talking to the regulators, right? So I'm also making it happen in a sense, right? I'm not just sitting there and waiting. I'm also pushing, and there are many people who get it, and so I think we will see some good things happening there.
Okay, thank you. I will pass this question to Irina. Have you found any kind of resistance because you are changing how things are done? Usually we do these kind of things manually, and now we are doing at the same time. Irina, can you say a little bit about it?
Yeah, Jorge, it was very interesting hearing Sam and Florian. We've been doing the festival rounds for over a number of years together to talk about and educate about the blockchain technology. And I would say, particularly within the European space, we've been some of the very early adopters and early promoters of the technology. I've been following Cinezen since 2018 and Florian's journey as well. So it's been it's really interesting to hear about also their personal experiences. There is, of course, always resistance when it comes to new technologies. We, of course, at Filmchain, we've also found stakeholders in the industry that had many questions about what we do and how we do it. For us, it's always been about focusing on the benefits of the technology rather than leading with the technology itself. So of course, when we do these educational panels, we talk about it, but when we speak with actual clients in the industry, we only focus on the benefits for them and elements of transparency and how our platform can help them in their day-to-day life, rather than the underlying technology that backs it up. And I have to say that, you know, we are always, I always think about it in terms of a metaphor. People drive cars, but not everyone knows how to fix a car. So for me, it's very similar with when we talk about blockchain. It's primarily trying to get adoption and get support from the industry, but at the benefits level. Also, our experience at Filmchain has been one where we have purposefully chose at the beginning of our journey not to use cryptocurrencies. And of course, we know that some platforms need it in order to make their systems work. But we have opted to integrate with traditional and banking partners and the new sort of up and coming neobanks in order to deliver the money streams to the participants. And from that perspective, our journey and our adoption within the industry has been smoother, because we didn't have to convince the filmmakers, investors, film funds to adopt cryptocurrencies.
Mm-hmm. And this kind of job that you do, and you all do, speaking about different laws, about different territories, we still have films in different territories. It allows to place in all the markets, or are there some restrictions, or they are restricted to use in some markets in terms of regulations?
So I can say that in terms of our solution and the platform at Filmchain, we collect revenues globally. So as a collection account management solution, we collect revenues from distributors globally, whether they are in Canada, in the US, in Australia, in Russia. So there's no, for us, there hasn't been any impediment in the sense of global outreach for our solution.
Mm-hmm. And you, Sam, Can you explain a little bit? Because I think your Cinezen employs DLT. That is a little bit different of blockchain, I believe.
Well, not really. DLT, the distributed ledger technology, is what's like the basis for blockchain. We use that because in some instances we felt that blockchain creates a lot of kind of mental resistance, because people think in the beginning nobody knew what blockchain was. Then it was a boom with Bitcoin, so people started to think, okay, blockchain means Bitcoin means shady money, dark web, and so on. So we thought that, okay, we'll use DLT just for the better image, not to scare people away. So, but basically, yeah, it's blockchain, because DLT, digital distributed ledger technology, is what the basis of blockchain.
Yeah, and
we are just different brands.
And we are very used to hear that is a very safe technology, that we cannot break it, but everything is break. We already know that we have some news of cryptocurrencies being hacked. So don't you feel that notion that the industry might be a little scared that somehow, for instance, a movie can be played in be hacked and be played in other places when it goes online?
I mean, blockchain, at least in what we are doing, has nothing to do with the copyright protection. We're using the traditional DRM system. We use blockchain for registering the transaction, to giving access to the right holders directly to the source of, not to the reports which we generate from our database, but the users, or the right holders and the influencers. They have the equal access to the database, so they can get all the information which is relevant for them directly from the source.
And this kind of peer-to-peer decentralized thing that you have doesn't bother big streamers like Netflix and stuff?
I don't think they care about that. I mean, we are small. We haven't even launched. Big streamers are primarily concerned about other big streamers. If, for example, Amazon would start doing that, then Netflix may be concerned.
But usually it's that way. It starts something small.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they're looking at us. Maybe they're listening to our conference right now. I don't know. Maybe some of the listeners is just reporting to Netflix what we're talking about. But unless we are bought by Amazon, or Amazon is creating something like that, I think they are right now. I think they are very much preoccupied with the content wars, because still the content is the most important thing for the big streamers. But we believe that when we start and when we reintroduce blockchain solutions, it can be our gateway to getting more content and more high quality content. Because if we can show the industry, okay, we can generate revenues, and for that, blockchain is only secondary. We need the users, we need the content, we need the right influencers. But when we generate revenues, they will get these revenues automatically. It will give us an edge in acquiring the content.
This is a question to you and to Irina. Did you notice after the pandemic started an increase in searching for your products, or not really, at least for now?
Jorge, if you may, I'll park that question, and I wanted to make a comment on the prior question you mentioned.
Sure.
When it comes to the security of the technology, one of the most important things and one of the most important aspects, I would say, it's the verification ability by participants of checking the information. And if we are to look at the industry as it is right now, so if you, I'm sure we have a number of content creators and producers watching us. They're all waiting for money to flow from distributors, from sales agents, down to their bank accounts. Currently, that information sits in Excel spreadsheets. So in Excel spreadsheets on individual computers that are sitting with the distributors, that are sitting with the sales agents, that as a producer, you don't have access to. You can't look, you can't see what money are there, what money arrived, when they're going to reach you. So one of the very important things of or applications of the blockchain that is slightly outside of the cryptocurrency use is the idea of being able to create immutable record of every single transaction per film, per TV series, where the stakeholders have the ability to easily log in and see their information. So of course, we're not imposing producers to go and check the chain itself. They have the ability to, but if they don't want to, they can see a very nice dashboard that we've curated for them, and we visualize the data from the chain onto our dashboard. But this is a huge benefit. This is something that I think it's sometimes often missed as a big benefit of the blockchain. And it creates security, because if you have data on an Excel spreadsheet, anyone has the ability to change a formula or delete a zero. And that would create, on the blockchain, that would create a record of any change that has happened. So those changes can't just happen with no trace. When it comes to pre-post pandemic, or when the pandemic started, Georgia, it's interesting. Of course, producers, investors in the film, financiers, film funds had a bit more time on their hands to educate themselves and to learn about new tech. We actually found there was an openness for the industry to learn about new technology within the sort of the crazy 2020 year. So we have actually seen quite a lot of appetite for digitization in the film industry, and part of it for the blockchain as well.
Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of producers around here. So what would you say directly to them if they want to start dealing with that? So they have, imagine they have a script and they want to start all the process. What will be the first step for them?
So of course, I can't. At Filmchain, we only deal with one particular part of the process, which is once the film is generally 70 to 80% financed. Financiers, producers need to appoint an unbiased third party called the collection account management. That essentially is the trustee of the funds while the film is recouping revenues. We collect the revenues from distributors and then pay out to all individual film beneficiaries involved in a production, sales agents, producers, talent, and so on. So in terms of ease of working with Filmchain, it's as easy as emailing us, and we can support them, set them up with a CAM, with a collection account management system. But when it comes to starting from the very scratch, we have heard of new initiatives. For example, in Canada, there's a new initiative that is supporting films to finance, to crowd equity finance through a blockchain solution called BlockFilm. We have seen individual films doing an equity financing on their own using blockchain. Here I have in mind a very interesting project called Mad Heidi, coming out of Switzerland, that has been successful. I can say that particularly when it comes to financing via blockchain solutions or blockchain-enabled solutions, producers need to be aware that there are significant legal costs if they want to do it on their own in order to set up well built and well thought through structures in order to do such investment processes. So I definitely would suggest they have a good lawyer that supports them through the process to make sure that they abide the regulation within their own countries around this type of investment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And you, Sam, going back again with the question of the pandemic, did you notice some increase in searching for your service?
Well, as our service is not launched, and for us, we were also badly hit with the pandemic, which basically our financing was stopped for 1 year. So we kind of almost took a sabbatical in 2020 in developing the project because we only could secure the finance and the end of the year. We can see that more films, because of the pandemic, remain unsold. There is more demand for non-exclusive deals, and then it creates more demand for effective solutions, both in terms of revenue sharing, but also in terms of right registering and so on. Because we had this situation that somebody licensed us films, then we realized that films were not properly owned, so we had to take them down. So yeah, pandemic or not, there is a big demand for that. And what pandemic did, it kind of shrunk the field of theatrical distribution. Or films sold, fewer films were sold with all rights. So it created more demand, in my opinion, for direct online deals and more demand for making these deals cost efficient.
Mm-hmm. And if there was the same question I did to Irina, if there was here a producer that wants to show you to get your services, what should be his first step to do it? Send you an email?
Yeah, sending us email, offering us their films. So it's just like licensing to any other distribution platform.
Mm-hmm. So you both believe that this is, I'm going to insist in this question because you and all of our guests talked about the resistance. You still believe that this is the future, like we saw in cryptocurrency. There was a lot of fear at the beginning, and then it exploded and made people rich.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was a lot of resistance to home video in the beginning. It was lots of resistance to online distribution. Every new technology provokes resistance of this very conservative industry. And what we learned, we should, as I said, we should focus on generating revenues and then gradually add blockchain automatization to that. And I'm not insisting that this is like universal technology for everybody. For some projects, like maybe for Irina, blockchain registry is like more the core of what they do. And we just realized that our core should be generating money, and blockchain can improve our value proposition. And what we are trying to do when we present our new blockchain solution is we'll start with it as an option. So people can try. We want to give people more time to adapt to it, and also to have for them an option for the conventional payments. So we just realized we shouldn't push the industry too hard.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that this particular technology is important for independent producers, especially?
Yeah, because independent producers are even more cost sensitive than the big studios. Big studios can spend lots of money on very low efficient things because they have a big cash flow, big stream of films. If you are an independent producer, you should be able to get the money out of many possible sources, and to be sure that you get all the money, that nothing is lost in the process.
Okay. And you, Irina?
Yes, Jorge, I can very much relate to Sam's experience, and I know, we go out in the markets, we go and talk to producers and people, and I can definitely relate that once you get too technical around your solution, conversations, as they say, go south. They don't get anywhere. But the most important thing is we continue to be promoters of technology. We're seeing a huge digitization wave coming over the industry. The industry needs to level up with other industries that have built more infrastructure, more technology. So there is a bit of catch up that the film and TV industry is doing right now. But from our perspective, with our solution and product at Filmchain, blockchain has not been a blocker for film funds in Europe, around the world, sales agents, producers to use our product on a daily basis. So it's really from my perspective, it's all about maybe also continues to be our scope of educating and talking about the technology, but ultimately we need to make it from business leaders and trailblazers in the industry with technology, make this focused on benefits rather than focused on the technology itself, because that is we won't get anywhere if we start talking and show code. It will only scare further the industry.
Okay, I have one last question for both. It's a question that comes from our audience. Kind of a risky question because there are a lot of producers around it. Would part of that, the resistance that we have been talking about, has anything to do that producers may think, here we go, someone else wants to take a slice of the pie? Do you think that you will find also resistance in producers because they are used to work in a certain way, and somehow another entity will take the slice of the pie?
I don't think it's not the case for us, because we offer them a distribution platform, and when they deliver their films to any distribution platform, they know that distribution platform gets share of revenues. It's more, for us, it was more resistance from the sales agents, because they always want money upfront. And also, I think like 2-3 years ago, they were much more open to revenue sharing deals, but there were many platforms which never generated any revenue, so never delivered any reports. So the appetite for revenue sharing is smaller. So you need to kind of prove, first of all, that you can generate income. You need to, as Irina said, you need to show them they would benefit from working with you. But blockchain can be a very good tool for keeping the licensing costs down, to pay less in advance, but to show that if the film generates the money, they can look at your register, they can see that certain films, without even knowing what the film is. There are certain ways of making so-called selective transparency in blockchain that you can show them that it works, persuade that there are revenues to be shared.
Thank you.
Because you can make, using blockchain, you can make a platform very transparent. People can see how many users you have, how many total income your platform generates, so they can understand, okay, we want a slice of this pie too.
Thank you very much, Sam. Irina, do you have anything to add to this question?
Yeah, I see the concern, and of course, as independent producers, we talk to independent producers every day, and we know that there's a of course on their end they need to cover so many costs, and they have to do so many jobs. So I can definitely see where the question is coming from, but I think again, this also doesn't apply to Filmchain because we are not creating a new service to some extent, or an additional fee or additional middleman. We are actually coming in as an alternative to traditional collection account management solutions. So we simply provide a digital alternative to the collection account management service. So it's not an additional piece of the pie.
Okay, thank you very much, Irina, and thank you very much, Sam. It was a pleasure to have you here. See you all tomorrow, and goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.